What's up, Armchair Fandom? Welcome to another Saturday Fandom Insanity. Uh, if you're not subscribed to our channel, please go to YouTube, sign up for a YouTube account, look for Armchair Fandom, and then hit the subscribe button. Also, like any videos that you watch on our channel that you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when we upload new content, and leave a comment in the comment section below. But before you can leave a comment, you probably will have to find our channel through a web browser. I'm not sure. Some people have had issues with leaving comments, so try to find YouTube through a web browser and look for our channel that way to leave comments. Before we get started today, I just want to encourage you to find us on Facebook at the Facebook group Armchair Fandom. You can also find us on Twitter at armchair_fandom. Before we get started, I also wanted to cover something I haven't really talked about much here lately about this channel. The purpose of this channel is the fact that not a lot of movie fans have the time and resources to completely engage with the things that they love as much as they would like. So this is kind of a clearinghouse for all things fandom. So if you enjoy the Marvel cinematic universe but don't have the time to see what other people think about it, or if you haven't seen all the movies, or if you like Star Wars and don't know a lot of the lore or things of that nature, I'm kind of playing as the middleman and going around YouTube, finding out what other people think about things, educating myself on it, and trying to relay that information to you. Because I'm just like you, I'm an armchair fandom. I come up with that name on the same idea as a Monday morning quarterback, or an armchair quarterback, or armchair coach. A lot of the YouTube channels we watch is from people who know a lot about the franchises they cover. I don't know everything there is to know about the franchises I cover. I'm just a movie fan that likes to watch good movies and talk about good movies. So before we get started today, let me bring in my guest, Darth Pane.
Hello, Jamie. Just catching up on my reading here at the Korriban Archives. That, you know, as the master librarian, kind of like Wong is as the librarian of Doctor Strange movie, I employ the same position at the Korriban Archives on the planet Korriban for the Sith.
So what are you reading? What are you reading?
How we're going to bring down the Jedi, and how it's the perfect plan. The rule of two. You know, basically, like I've said before, I was the one behind Darth Bane. I'm the one that taught him how to count to two. So that's where the rule of two came afterwards. So it's all downhill after that.
You need to be reading up on how to take down a bunch of these YouTube Disney shields.
Gosh, I think they made a movie about that called Mission Impossible.
Did you hear me in the intro?
There's so many of them, it's not even funny.
Did you hear me during the intro?
I just heard my theme. I did not hear you. What were you saying?
I was just trying to remind everybody to sign up for a YouTube account.
Oh, I did see that. Yes, I did see that.
Look
Yes.
for our channel. Subscribe. Did you hear anything I left out?
No, just make sure you can always plug me, saying don't forget about our host co-host Darth Pane here. You can catch him at Ashley Houchins on Twitter or find me on Facebook as well. I'll be sure I can rap with you on there in either format.
Yeah, and if you have questions or show topic ideas, just send them to us at the Facebook group Armchair Fandom or Armchair_Fandom on Twitter.
Right.
Anything else? We're trying to get all the self-promotion out of the way.
Yeah, well, you can feel free to super chat us, and guess what? There'll be a soon to be on the way is an Armchair Fandom shop. Looking for those last minute Christmas items? Those items people can't find? Guess what? Armchair Fandom Shop's the place for you.
I actually have been working on different logos and stuff to try to sell some merch.
And if you want, and if you want the stuff to be super cool, feel free to super chat the channel some money to make it streamlined even faster for you. All major types of super chats and money is accepted.
That's right. I asked somebody I follow on Twitter if I could share my channel one day. She said, yeah, of course. We all got to do our self-promotion somewhere. You ever watch Jesse Milestone on YouTube? Mindless entertainment. Yeah. But anyways, we're going to get started with this week's show. I got out last night to see this movie. You'd already watched it earlier in the week on HBO Max.
Right.
The movie Dune, which I kind of get the impression you didn't think a lot about it. Before we move on, let me say I've noticed some people leaving us some comments in the chat. So
let's keep PG-13, people.
If you want to interact with the channel, just wait till the end of the episode, and we'll bring up the chat and interact with the comments in the chat. So let us move on. We want to talk about Dune. We're going to talk about some spoilers. What did you think about Dune, Ashley?
Well, like I mentioned to you earlier in the week, I thought the graphics, the CG, all the visuals were excellent. I mean, apparently the director that has done these kind of movies before is really at the top of their game. Unfortunately, not knowing any of the lore, it was very difficult to get behind any of the characters that they introduced to you. It felt like you were kind of dropped in the middle of an already running plot, and if you didn't know anything that's going on, it just sucks to be you. You just have to pick it up as you go. And that's basically for 2.5 hours. That's 2.5 hours of my life that I can't get back. And I would send them a bill for it, but I'm not going to get any recompensation. So that's what I thought of it.
So am I to take that as you absolutely hated it?
I didn't hate it, but it could have been better. I mean, and I think a word to the wise in the future might be, if you see a movie with a lot of big names in it, don't be expecting it to be an Academy Award winner, because it might be a dud. And Zendaya, who everybody knows from the Spider-Man movies and The Greatest Showman, was in it for a grand total of 7 minutes. So if you were going there to see her, you were going to wait a while.
Well, they already greenlit it for a sequel.
Of course they have. It's great. Why not?
I didn't hate it. I didn't know what to think about it. Honestly, when I came out of it last night, I was like right down the middle. The best way I can describe it to anybody is it's like an adult version of Star Wars mixed with Game of Thrones. I mean, you got this emperor. They keep referring to the emperor that you never actually see in this movie. And he's in charge of what's known as the Imperium. I actually came home last night and did some research on the whole Dune lore. And I watched some reviews and read some reviews. The more I read up on it, the more I listened to other people that actually knew about this property when they went into it, the more interesting I am in it. I'm wanting to watch it the second time on HBO Max. But
Better
it's
you
kind of like
than
an
me.
adult Star Wars. There's like this galaxy of planets that are in this what they refer to as the Imperium with this emperor. I'm not real versed in all the names and everything yet, but you have these different houses, these elite houses that belong to this Imperium. Uh, let's see what else did I figure out. Uh, you got the House Atreides and the House uh, Arcanans. The Arcanans have been in control of this desert planet known as Arrakis, which is a desert planet, which is where the name Dune actually comes from, like a sand dune. But this planet has these giant worm creatures that live on it, and their stomach bile, as they churn through the sand, actually creates this substance in the sand called spice. And Harkonnen have been on this planet for years and years, mining this spice, which gives the people in the Imperium. Another thing we haven't been introduced to yet is what's known as the Space Guild. We haven't met them yet in these movies, but it gives them the ability to fold space so that they can achieve interstellar space travel. It helps them have longer lives. This spice stuff's like the most valuable stuff in the universe. Well, the Harkonnens have been on that planet mining it. Well, the Emperor pulled them off and turned control of that planet over to the House Atreides, which is ran by the guy played by Oscar Isaacs, known as what was Duke Leto Atreides. And the Emperor turns control of Arrakis, the desert planet, over to House Atreides, and he's married to this woman named Lady Jessica, who belongs to this religious order of women known as the Beret Gennesaret or something to that effect. And they've been controlling bloodlines and all this crazy stuff because they can choose the gender of their offspring. And it's crazy, man. The more I learned about it, the more interested I am in it. I really want to see it a second time and see what I think about it now that I got this background of updated knowledge of what's actually going on.
Game of Thrones season 8 made more sense than that movie did.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's like this movie was the middle chapter. We never got the first chapter. This movie was the middle chapter, and it ends abruptly without the second movie even being greenlit. They just ended it like right in the middle. But now the second movie will come out in a couple years, October 2023, and I guess we'll see what happens with Paul Atreides.
Yeah, that again. I got the impression that Oscar Isaac's wife, that cult was telling her, well, great move choosing a boy to be your offspring and all that stuff. So I got that tint from it as well. But again, the whole thing, you couldn't get behind a single character. I mean, there's Josh Brolin. He played Thanos. Well, he's gone after a bit. Jason Momoa, though, was the only one that was around for at least the big chunk of the movie. And I understood the plot, what they were trying to get control of the desert planet. That's 101. It's low hanging fruit, but low hanging fruit is picked. But bottom line is, you couldn't get behind any of those characters. You just knew that boy who was, I guess, is going to be like an Anakin chosen one, if I can use a Star Wars reference. But again, you couldn't get behind. There's no character development, and when you have a movie that's long and there ought to be some character development, and there was none for anybody that I could get.
There was a little bit, but not much for his character, I didn't think. But like I told you, it's just because it feels like it's just the middle chapter, and you never got the first chapter.
Right.
I mean, I enjoyed the scene with Oscar Isaac and Timothy Chalamet where he was talking to him about he told him if he wasn't a leader, he was always the only thing he ever needed him to be was his son.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there's some scenes in it I really liked, and I enjoyed it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it was because I enjoyed it that much, or it didn't seem, it seemed like a short 2.5 hours to me.
Well, Jason Momoa probably had the longest arc of any of them in there, and the way his character died, you could really tell. I mean, it was Aquaman out of the sea, and he played his part well. There's probably no role Jason Momoa can't do, and he really was really good. He was probably my favorite character of the show, and I was wanting to like Josh Brolin because he was so good as Thanos, but he just stood around there half the time, fought a little bit, and then next thing you know, he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll discuss this going forward. Maybe next week a little bit more if I get an opportunity to watch it again. But I would encourage you to go on YouTube and watch some other reviews of it. And there's one channel, just when you search on YouTube, just type in Dune lore, and there's a channel called Quinn's something, and he's got a channel. Remember the guy we used to watch Star Wars lore?
Yeah, he's still there. I still have his channel.
Yeah, this channel's kind of like that, man. He covers all the Dune lore from all the books and stuff.
That's the thing. I heard one reviewer say that a lot of these movies, even like this, there should be something for the normies, which are people like me, who have know anything about the lore, should be able to latch on to. I never got that from this movie, and I think if a person has to go and look up a lore channel before they go see something like that, I guess there'll be some sort of disclaimer. Hey, man, if you don't know anything about this, you might want to do some research to come roll into the theater. Okay. Give me my $9, thanks.
This coming from the guy that's read more Star Wars books than me.
Well, again, but also one thing I'll say for this Dune people, they don't have somebody like Lucasfilms who just comes in the last minute and says, oh, everything we put out from now on is canon. Oh, wait a minute, the stuff you read in the EU is not canon, legends. Then they start cherry picking and start putting stuff into canon. Oh yeah, Admiral Thrawn, Grand Admiral, he's canon. Bottom line is, there's nothing wrong with having lore, to having a story. Got no problem with that. But you need to have something that everyday Joe can come in and say, oh, man, I want to see this movie just because I saw it. Oh, Zendaya's in this movie. She's in it for 7 minutes. I mean, there's other people in it. But to compare Dune to Star Wars has been around for so much longer than any of this stuff has. It's not really a fair comparison.
I'm not really comparing them. I'm just talking about the fact that there's this galactic, like, empire setting. That's not.
Yeah.
I'll force crush your skull.
No. Just if you're having a little trouble breathing now, we know what it is.
But yeah, go do some more research and see what you think about Dune.
Well, I didn't think the Game of Thrones reference. I mean, yeah, you got different houses for it, and of course, the sand stuff reminds you of Tatooine. But again, you've got. I think if you would have had some sort of beginning thing that told you these people come from an out of space type of deal, yeah, we'd like to see some of these different planets and different families and houses and stuff. But they get a vague reference. In your 2.5 hours, you can't even do more than a vague reference. I had issue with that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Current and upcoming releases real quickly. Some we've already covered. Venom still at the theaters. I'm hoping to get out and see this. It's not on the top of my priority list, which is why I haven't yet, but I did see the first one. I was entertained, so I'd like to see this one. If I don't make it to the theater to see it, oh well, I'll wait till it comes out to rent. Next Friday is this one. The Eternals, next installment of the MCU. Let's talk about that one for a couple of minutes, Ashley, because right now, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it's getting crushed by the critics. I mean, people like to say, 61% on Rotten Tomatoes is still fresh. Well, that's all you can give it on Rotten Tomatoes is rotten or fresh. It ain't like they got a huge scale. I mean, 61% in a 1 or 10 scenario is not a real good score, in my opinion.
Well, I think the thing with this movie is, and I'm going to say it, is that they've had the MCU's had so many hits. Now there's been some that have had mixed reviews, but you're starting to get into it now that I think even Feige has to admit you're starting to try to sell characters that people aren't familiar with. And again, I'll be the first to admit I'm a big Marvel guy, but I've read one comic in my life on the Eternals, and I thought it was okay. It was one of Jack Kirby's last things he did, and supposedly they were created by the Celestials, which we get a vague reference to the Celestials in the Guardians movie, and of course with Ego, Star-Lord's dad. So basically, the Eternals is going to be about these beings that were created by these Celestials. And so basically, it's almost like Guardians of the Galaxy when that started. Not many people knew who they were. And I think, if it's going to need to have something that people are going to want to latch onto and go with it for, because apparently a sequel is already pretty much guaranteed. So unless it bombs, we're going to have to wait and see and just, hopefully find something you like about it.
What's Guardians right now on Rotten Tomatoes?
Now, the first or second one, I don't know. I mean, I
first
really thought
one.
The audience score was out of the roof, I'm sure.
I'm looking it up. Hold on 1 second.
One thing's for sure, both Guardians movies crushed it at the box office. Whether Eternals does or not, I don't know. But Shang-Chi did really well.
Yeah, but Shang-Chi's still rated real high, even if you don't like it that much.
I thought Shang-Chi was good. I was of all the 3 MCU movies that was coming out this year, Shang-Chi was the one I might have been worried about the most because I didn't know anything about the Master of Kung Fu stuff. But I was looking forward to seeing a real Mandarin, and I wasn't disappointed with that at all.
Rotten Tomatoes. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Did you find it?
Yeah, like right now, Guardians of the Galaxy has a 92% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 92% audience score, and right now, the Eternals is at, last time I seen it was at 61%. So, I mean, Guardians, nobody knew anything about Guardians when it came out, but everybody loved it.
Right.
Eternals is really suffering right now. I mean, people, I hate it when people take like a 60% Rotten Tomatoes score and try to say that's a good score because it's certified fresh. And my point is, if you're a critic, the only thing you can do is give it a rotten or fresh score. There's no in between.
I think with the Guardians is I only knew a couple of the actors that were in the Guardians of the Galaxy when it first came out. I knew like 2 or 3 of them. The Eternals has the advantage of having several actors that people around the world know. Most notably, at least 2 from Game of Thrones. That's going to be going for it pretty well. The question is whether they can find a couple of characters that people can latch on to. Most MCU movies have a good degree of action, of course, but also humor. If this movie is found to be lacking in humor, I think the scores will suffer going forward. That's the one thing that's always separated the Marvel movies from the DC movies. The Marvel movies are good action, but they've always got great humor in it. Even Endgame had humorous spots in it.
I don't know why people are. I've read a few non-spoiler reviews on the Eternals. I don't know what people's biggest issue is with it.
I don't either. I take that back.
I think I've heard people say there's some pacing issues and things like that because
I've heard that
so many characters.
There's one constant thing that I've heard in some of the reviewers. I'm glad you brought that up. Is a lot of people don't like the fact that there's a lot of lore and a lot of backstory explained. But to be fair, I think they have to do this because you're talking about explaining why these people didn't get involved during the Infinity Saga. That means they predate a lot of the universe stuff. You have to lay some backstory. If you don't have any backstory, this is just some schmo flying around shooting stuff out of his eyes. I think if I come out of this movie thinking that's the biggest problem with it, I'll be fine with it. Because I say lay all the backstory on me you want. Because you're going to be using these guys going forward. Then I need to know some stuff about them because I sure didn't read the comics on them.
So that's next Friday. When did you say you was going to see it?
Probably 2:30
on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could probably meet you for that one. I'll let you know for sure next week. But the week after that, well, yeah, I gotta go see this with my 3-year-old. Clifford the Big Red Dog. You gonna join us?
Well, I think one of the Dark Council's got me doing something that night you're going, so I don't think I'll be able to do it. Sorry. Besides, I probably couldn't show my face at a Dark Council meeting if I went and saw this.
Yeah, I guess I got to do this one though, man. Forget it. We're not going to see it. It's going to be horrible. But Daddy, I'm only 3. I really want to see it, but forget it.
Look, there's no action in it. You're out.
Look, we can't go see this. It's got a 32% Rotten Tomatoes score. I don't even know what that is.
When you learn about it, figure it out, come talk to me. Until then, go watch SpongeBob and leave me alone. Thanks.
I can't remember what date this is. Let me see if I can figure this out. November 19th. Ghostbusters Afterlife. That'll be a couple weeks after Eternals, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess November, December is going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Rudd's in that movie, and anything Paul Rudd's in, you got to give some credence to. That guy can flat out bring it.
He's a good actor, and he can be funny too.
Right. Anything Paul Rudd's in, you got to give it some credit for. And you make Ant-Man cool, there's something going for you. You got something going on.
Yeah. And then toward the end of November, Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City.
You're not taking your 3-year-old to see that? I'm shocked.
What?
You're not taking your 3-year-old to see that? I'm shocked.
No, I mean, unless I take you. But, yeah, I'm going to beat you over the head and make you go watch that one with me.
Now, hit me in the head. That's the hardest part on me. You won't get anywhere with that. You'll try somewhere else.
Yeah, I still can't believe you've never seen the George Romero movies. Night of the Living Dead's considered.
We can't all see everything.
Night of the Living Dead's considered one of the best horror movies of all time, considering the budget.
Honeymoon involved with this, The Life of the Living Dead.
Now I know we'll be hitting this one on opening night.
Yes, I would hope so.
Spider-Man: No Way Home.
You've heard the rumblings about that this is supposedly the end game for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Have you heard that talk?
As far as the MCU goes,
yeah,
I've heard that. I've heard the rumors. I don't think it's going to be in for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I think they're going to transition him into the Sony Venom verse, to be honest with you.
Oh, and that could be a hot mess.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to have Spider-Man and Venom.
Look at Spider-Man running around with this character named Venom who's going around trying to eat people and eat pancakes at the same time. How's that going to work? Can't take that seriously. Hey, man, it's a comic book movie. I know it's a comic book movie, but all these other 25 ones that Feige have done haven't had a problem.
And then a couple movies coming out on Christmas Eve. This one I brought to your attention last week, a couple weeks
Right.
ago, American Underdog, about Kurt Warner and the greatest show on turf. And then this one the same week, Matrix Resurrections. Have you ever watched the Matrix movies?
Yeah, yes. As a matter of fact, you remember Derek Buzzard? We worked with him. He
Yeah.
gave me 2 of those movies to bring home and watch, and I've seen all 3 of them. The first one I could stomach. The last 2, the second one wasn't that bad, but the third one was awful. I'm telling you, I don't care if Keanu Reeves is in it or not. If you've ever seen John Wick movies, that might be the best work Keanu Reeves has ever done. But I got to tell you, I am not looking forward to this Matrix movie coming out. Not at all.
I'm not either. I liked the first Matrix movie. The second 2 I didn't like that much. And I'm the same way with the John Wick franchise. The first one's cool, and then the next 3 is just him shooting people in the kneecaps again for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
The second John Wick was okay. It wasn't great. It was still good. The third one was pretty good. And I got to tell you, anytime I see Keanu Reeves doing John Wick, I'm in. Because that movie's I think John Wick is the guy that makes Michael Myers make him arch his eyebrow because John Wick is the real boogeyman.
Have you heard anything on this yet?
I have not. I'm anxiously awaiting that though.
Let me know.
That's going to be an excellent show. I mean, those skits on Saturday Night Live were just comedy gold. I mean, now I saw most of the movie. The movie was okay, but I just really think that I think a television show might be the better format for that. It's kind of like Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is a continuation of the Karate Kid movies, as we all know. But guess what? Cobra Kai, I don't think would do well as a movie, but as a streaming service, as a show, perfect. And I think that's exactly what MacGruber needs.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Just have him in these 20-minute scenarios every week. Just extend the SNL skits out about 15 minutes. You got a perfect show.
I agree.
Have guest appearances every week.
Get Charles Barkley back on there. Get Richard Dean Anderson as MacGyver back on there. Get them all on there.
All right, man. That's all for that. Brings us to our MCU Catch Up. This week we're going to be talking about Iron Man 2. I never have enough time to go back and actually watch these. I've seen all these MCU movies at least 4 or 5 times a piece.
Me too.
So, but I can't never find the time to watch the one we're going to be talking about that week. Refresh our memory on what the story was from Iron Man 2.
Well, Iron Man 2 picks up after Tony Stark has revealed that he's Iron Man, which is totally different from the comics. In the comics, they made it out where Iron Man was Tony Stark's bodyguard, but we know what happened at the end of the first one. And basically, it's revealed in the beginning of the movie that the suit, the thing that's keeping the stuff from his heart, is killing him. And he's basically going through a whole big part of the movie trying to, find a way to get that from going in there and killing him. And then this villain comes out, rears his head, Mickey Rourke, who basically his dad was a scientist who worked with, Howard Stark, and turns out the guy was a crook. Imagine that. And so they drop kick his rear end back to Russia, and he dies. He dies from vodka poisoning. He basically raises a kid who's about 3 sheets to the wind like him, leaves him all of his secrets, and he creates this suit to go back here and try to take vengeance on. Of course, it's Tony Stark's fault. Everything was Tony Stark's fault back then. So they send him back here to try to take him out, and of course he fails, puts him in jail. And of course, the government at this time, as the governments like to do, try to take over everything, was trying to take Tony Stark's property, which is his suit. And they were using Justin Hammer as their weapons developer, and he ends up meeting up with Ivan Vanko, who is the villain from the comics known as Whiplash. Now, I'll say this, the Iron Man movies were good, but except for the first movie, the villains after the first movie were pretty poor. And Whiplash was not one of their better villains. Now, Mickey Rourke's a good actor, but he had a lot of problems with Marvel after the fact come to be revealed. But another significant part of this movie is the fact this is the introduction of Don Cheadle as Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes. and he was replacing Terrence Howard, who got into a bit of a problem and financial dispute with Marvel Studios. And basically, they said 2 words to him: "You're out. Don Cheadle's in." So, bottom line is, I mean, it's not one of the better MCU movies, but it's a good movie. And basically, and I think something that's really underestimated in the whole MCU canon is the interaction between John Slattery, who plays Howard Stark. There was 2 different Howard Starks. You have the younger Howard Stark, who's in Captain America, and then you have John Slattery's version. His interaction with Robert Downey Jr., those 2 guys could have been father and son, because they both have the sarcasm or quick with the response, and just the interaction between those 2 is just, when you see them talking about each other, you believe that they're father and son. And I think having his dad help him from the grave, basically figure out what was killing him with his heart, fixing that, and defeating Whiplash, made Iron Man 2 an underrated movie. Not one of the greatest ones, but it's certainly better than some of the ones that came afterwards. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
which Iron Man movie did the?
At one time, I liked it an awful lot.
Yeah, which Iron Man was that that nerd, that guy that was real dorky? What was that character's name?
Oh, he became the Mandarin as Iron Man 3. That was gosh, what was that guy? I mean, Guy Pearce is the guy that played him. Not Justin Hammer. I can't remember his name. Aldrich Killian. That was his name. Aldrich Killian.
Yeah. You liked him, didn't you?
No, I did not. He was a dud. Iron Man 3 was not very good. It was okay. But I mean, again, RDJ as Tony Stark, you're going to watch it and you're going to enjoy it majority of the time. You're going to be entertained. That's what you got from it.
Yeah.
And another significant thing about Iron Man 2 is this is the last MCU movie that was directed by Jon Favreau, who plays Happy Hogan in all the MCU movies and is currently one of the driving forces behind The Mandalorian, as you well know.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say about Iron Man 2 is based on what you just refreshed my memory that it's about on, is just all of the MCU. I can't say this enough. Is all the MCU movies, man. You don't realize you're getting attached to these characters until the 3rd and 4th Avengers movies, and just the character arcs that they go on. Just Tony Stark, man. He's just he had his awakening in the cave in the first Iron Man, and he just had a change of heart, and you just seen him fighting that to redeem himself for the rest of the. I mean, even in the 3rd one, he's got PTSD, from everything he's been through and all the stuff that he's bothered about. But I mean, there's no MCU movie I wouldn't recommend anybody watch. So yeah, I mean, that's where I am on any of the MCU. The MCU, I mean, I just find it difficult to break it into single movies sometimes and just talk about it on a single movie basis, because it really is just like one gigantic 50-some hour movie.
It's like the old made for television movies you talked about the previous week. This is a longer continuation of it. And you don't have, and one thing about, again, I'm like you, I could recommend any MCU movie and they're all rewatchable. It has a thread. If you watch it, every Easter egg is paid off. And you know what? And if you don't watch it, if you don't see every one of them, you can still enjoy it. And that's the thing about it's a continuing story that you buy into these characters and you get sucked in. And once you're in, there's no coming out of it. I remember when you first started watching these, you told me, you said, well, I'm a big Star Wars guy. I don't know if I can buy into this new universe that's coming out and everything. I said, well, just give them a chance. And once you did, you started getting caught up on everything. You didn't have to read the comic books because that's not the same as the comics. It's the same characters, but different stories. And you start buying into it. It's just a long made-for-television miniseries that instead of 10 weeks or 10 hours, it's 10 plus years.
Yeah. So how did Iron Man 2 wrap up?
Iron Man 2, actually, there's an Easter egg in that, another Easter egg. Speaking of that, if you recall, there was a certain part in the movie whenever Tony gets his new suit there that a little kid was wearing an Iron Man mask, acted like he was going to shoot one of those drones, and Tony destroyed him. He said, "Nice going, kid." They said later on that was Peter Parker, who we all know as Spider-Man. And the movie ended with them defeating, Whiplash. He gets killed. And afterwards, you have the movie ends, and Tony Stark's back, and him and Pepper have worked out their differences at the time, and basically it's just a matter of whether or not they're hinting toward the Avengers, and he's just like, well, we'll just have to and we'll just have to see what happens with that, and so basically it ends with that, and you just know what's coming up next is going to be the Hulk, and that's what ends up happening there. He defeats Whiplash, and you start seeing further seeds laid toward the Avengers being formed. And the post-credits scene, if I recall, is Thor's hammer in the middle of the New Mexico desert.
Yeah.
And that there's just laying the groundwork like they do with all these movies for the next thing that's going to come. And that's why I think Eternals is going to have a lot of backstory, but it's going to be laying some Easter eggs for what's going forward. And I think you'll get that from the post-credit scene.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that out of the way, let's see what we got left here. What was you going to talk about this week, Ash?
Well, this week's prescription of pain pills is going to talk about what's happened to the American sitcom. And this is let's get this disclaimer out of the way. All right. This week's pain pill, as I said, is about American sitcom, what's happened to it, will it ever come back as we know it. Not without showing my age, during the era that I grew up, the network television was full of sitcoms that were just great. And even I watched them in reruns, the ones like MASH. You have, Sanford and Son. You had Cheers, Cosby Show. I mean, Family Ties, and even my favorite show of all time, the Steve Harvey Show. And it just seems like television nowadays, now, a lot of people aren't watching networks like they used to because it's streaming services that are available and there's more options. But I still think, in lieu of the fact that even though these streaming services are out there, the American sitcom that I grew up knowing is pretty much faded off. Married with Children, stuff like that. The Big Bang Theory was one that was lasted for a long time, but it ended a few years ago. Last Man Standing ended a couple of years ago. It just seems like the television trend nowadays is tending to go away from the sitcom and go to other forms of entertainment, whether it's a reality show or sci-fi, fantasy, or whatever. I just think it's important, and I would like to see the television audiences go back to more of a sitcom, because you know what? When it comes to reality shows and stuff like that, I don't watch television and movies for reality. I watch it to escape reality. And I think a lot of the people that watch this channel and watch those feel the same way. So I just hope down the road that we see some sitcoms come back like I grew up watching. Some of the shows I just outlined, because I think everybody needs a good laugh once in a while. And, being a Sith Lord, I pretty much laugh at the Jedi all the time. So I think, all things being said, I would like to see us get back to more of a comedic nature and have some laughs, because especially in this day and this era and time, laughter is some of the best medicine you can have. Thanks.
So what's your favorite sitcom of all time?
The Steve Harvey Show. It ran on the WB from 1996 to 2002. Steve Harvey, by the way, is from Welch, West Virginia. Might be, not only is he a Christian guy, he may be the funniest man I've ever seen in my life. And he keeps it clean, and he's hilarious. That show, I swear, him and Cedric the Entertainer, they made you laugh, and it was just Married with Children prior to that had been my favorite. It's still a top 5 one for me. Steve Harvey Show was on 6 years, and he left when it was on top. He didn't let it go on too long. He knew exactly when he wanted to leave. And I think anybody could give you a catch out on reruns. watch it because that's some of it. You'll laugh. You'll be entertained.
Yeah, my favorite sitcom of all time was King of Queens.
Good
Doug
show.
Heffernan is my male hero. My favorite episode of King of Queens ever is when he makes his wife buy a house just simply because it has a dumbwaiter that goes straight from the kitchen to the bedroom. And she don't want to buy it. And he's like, hey, I don't know if you realize what we got here. This is a elevator for food that goes straight to the bedroom. And he ends up buying it. They end up buying it. And the credits start rolling. And the first time he puts food in that dumbwaiter and starts cranking the wheel, he's like cranking it as fast as he can crank it. And it's just barely moving. And it gets up out of sight and it just crashes to the bottom. It's classic.
Well, I mean, that was a classic show. Friends was on 10 years. That was a classic. Most people I know liked Friends. It was just classic comedies like that are just stuff you need to make you laugh for 30 minutes. And nowadays with the nobody's watching networks like they used to, really. It used to be some of these shows, not just limited to comedies, would start in September and end in May. Now they're starting at varying times, either January, February, or whenever. And whether it's a comedy or not. And I just think I was fortunate enough to grow up not only with some of the best era of Star Wars and now getting to see the MCU stuff, but some of the sitcoms that I saw television was just great. And the laughs I would get from watching those guys was just, it really took your mind off what was going on at the time. And I think a lot of that is still needed to this day. You still have good memories of the Kings and Queens. I could sit here. I watch Steve Harvey almost every night I can when I see it's on. And unfortunately, they've never put the show on DVD. For some reason, it's like they have one best of disc. It has 5 episodes on. It's great episodes. But there's some kind of licensing disagreement with Sony or somebody, but they've never put the entire show on disc. Because if they did, I'd own every one of them. That was a great show.
Most of my experience with King of Queens came on the rerun route. It came on late at night on TV Land. They would run like 4 or 5 episodes right in a row, and I would just marathon it. I don't know how much you've watched King of Queens, man. You know, it's great.
I watched some of it. Kevin James was funny. I mean, he turned that into the Mall Cop movies, if I recall.
Yeah, my favorite character on it is him and Jerry Stiller's character, Arthur. Another great episode of that is Carrie and Doug go on vacation. They get Deacon to come over and babysit Arthur. And Arthur gets mad and just keeps treating him rude, so he'll leave. So finally, Deacon leaves, and Arthur stumbles upstairs and starts sneaking around Doug and Carrie's room, stealing their loose change off the dresser. He dresses up in Doug's IPS outfit and orders Chinese, and then acts like he works for IPS when the delivery guy shows up. And Doug's IPS outfit's like 4 sizes too big for him. It was really funny.
Most people that have watched sitcoms like that over the years have favorite episodes. One of my favorite episodes is Steve Harvey Show. I mean, anytime they had him get together with any of the guys he called the High Tops and start singing, made me laugh out loud, roll the floor laughing. And then there was one where Isabel Sanford guest starred on there. You know, people may know Isabel Sanford when she was on The Jeffersons. She played his mom, and she was trying to get him married off. I about laughed myself to death watching them interact. I mean, that was just a great example of somebody who had been on a previous sitcom in the 70s, and Isabel Sanford being on a sitcom in the 90s and 2000s, and just still having that comedy chops to make it last. I mean, that again, some of the episodes like it, laughs that last a lifetime.
Yeah. All right, man. Last topic. You gave me this idea last night. We was texting back and forth. The American Western movie. I just put a collage here of some of my all the famous ones. Of course, you got Clint Eastwood, John Wayne. Then you got a couple not necessarily known for being in Westerns so much, but simply the roles that they played in Westerns. You got Emilio Estevez down there at the bottom left. Val Kilmer on the bottom right. I've never been a real big Western fan, but usually when I watch, like, Western is something like I never have a high desire to seek out and watch. Uh, but usually when I do watch a Western, I end up enjoying it a lot. My favorite Westerns, like last week, which is why you gave me this idea, my favorite Western of all time is The Searchers. And I love the Young Guns movies with Emilio Estevez, Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood. Uh, Tombstone's a good one, but I've only seen Tombstone maybe once or twice.
Tombstone is my favorite Western of all time. Up until that point, my favorite Western had always been The Sons of Katie Elder. And The Sons of Katie Elder is still my favorite John Wayne movie. Tombstone, I've never in my life seen a Western have so many quality actors. And it just, because I'm a big Kurt Russell mark. So, I will love almost anything he's in. Not everything he's in, but I like most of them. But Val Kilmer, that was his signature role. He's been in a lot of stuff. I've never seen anybody in a movie steal the show from Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell was basically the de facto director of that movie. And he had no problem with it because Kurt's a company guy. He had no problem letting Val Kilmer do his thing. That is the greatest Western I've ever seen in my life. The timing, the characters, the villains were good. The heroes were good. I'm usually the one, like you say, that likes the villains and stuff and a lot of stuff. I tell you what, I love seeing Val Kilmer destroy the villains. He absolutely, and Michael Biehn and Powers Booth are powerful actors. And Doc Holliday just stole the show, man. That is the greatest Western ever made. And I can watch it. If I see it's on, I get sucked in. I can't turn it off. But now an underrated one you may not be familiar with as much is the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the ending, but yet I understand why the ending ended the way it did, because basically they're not totally sure what happened to Butch and Sundance. Robert Redford and Paul Newman, that's big time, and they brought it in that movie. That's just another one to throw in there.
So how do you like the Young Guns franchise?
I thought it was good. I didn't like them as much as everybody else did, but I thought they were good. They're good to watch. I didn't mind them. The music was good. And Kiefer Sutherland was good. Emilio Estevez was good. Lou Diamond Phillips. They were all good. I just didn't identify them with as much as I like, with Tombstone and I like The Searchers like you did, Big Jake, and The Sons of Katie Elder are my favorite Westerns.
I like probably The Searchers, and then I like The Cowboys with John Wayne.
Cowboys is good.
As far as Clint Eastwood goes, Pale Rider was a good one.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
My problem.
What do you like about Westerns?
I love Clint Eastwood, but he'll always be Dirty Harry to me. I cannot see him almost as anybody but Dirty Harry.
So what do you like most
he did a lot of
Westerns?
other movies that were really good, but to me, he'll always be Dirty Harry. And that's one character they should never recast is Harry Callahan, because one guy only could play him. That's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. So what do you like the most about Western movies?
What I like most about the Western movies, another underrated one is Gunfight at the OK Corral. That was my first exposure to Doc Holliday. And Kirk Douglas did a great job playing him, but when Val Kilmer got that role, forget it. He was Doc. But what I like most about Westerns was the times it takes you back. It's a historical period back in the old days. And you really, as much as we like these Marvel movies now, the outcome wasn't so much determined by these intergalactic powers. It was basically you got real character development. You got to know what made Outlaw A tick or what the hero A click. You got to know about them. You got to learn about them. And it was more about if they could ride, they could shoot. It was very simple and to the point. There wasn't a whole lot of other stuff going on that you needed to keep up with peripherals. It was straight to the point. It was easy to follow.
All right, let's go over here and answer some comments.
I'm sure these are good. Keep PG-13, people.
We got I don't know who this is. It's got to be a family member.
Probably.
I have to find out who it is. It's Fur Chuck. I don't know who that is, man.
It says, why do we suck?
But he does say later, all kidding about Bambi being a classic aside, that's not too far off. Bambi actually is a classic. But he says, you guys ever get the chance to review the classic, yet very underrated Bambi by Walt Disney? It's a life-changing experience, quite possibly a cinematic masterpiece. That's probably true, but I don't know about life-changing experience unless you like seeing a baby deer's mom get shot and killed.
Hey, look, I like Bambi as much as the next guy back in the day, but life-changing experience might be a tad of an exaggeration. Might be a hint of sarcasm in there, possibly.
Yeah, I think maybe just a little bit. I mean, if you really go with the age group that's probably watching Bambi, instead of life changing, might be more of a life traumatizing experience. I mean, Walt Disney's movies, if you ever go back and watch some of the older stuff, there's some dark material in some of his stuff, man.
Hey, some of the Walt Disney classics I grew up with, what my favorite one back before Lion King came out was the Jungle Book. The Jungle Book and Peter Pan. Those were those are two of my favorites from classics back in the day.
My favorite Disney stuff is the real life stuff, not the animated stuff, but like Old Yeller, Swiss Family Robinson. Swiss Family Robinson's a really good movie. That brings back good memories too, because a lot of the older Disney stuff my dad introduced us to when we were kids, and we'd go back to the old mom and pop video stores, and when you actually still had to go out and going out and renting your movie was part of the experience of movie night. Do you remember the store that used to be at Five Corners?
Yeah, there was the video store there, and of course you had Blockbuster and everything else. And you remember how it was Friday night, but that place was packed. People rolling in and out of there getting movies.
Well, before Blockbuster ever showed up in Beckley, it was just the mom and pop places like the Five Corners store, and then you had Videoville and Beaver. And,
right.
I mean, those were the old days of movie rentals. That's when it was real expensive to get the copies, and the mom and pop places only have a couple copies of a given movie, and they put you on a waiting list. And if it came back and you was next on the waiting list, they'd call you. Even if it was just a Wednesday night in the middle of a school week, you wasn't going to pass up the chance to go get that rental. That was the one.
You had that with video games too.
Yeah, that was the one time your parents didn't have a bedtime for you. They'd let you slide.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he also says, I'm part of the Bambi Cinematic Universe fan club.
Is he part of the one that says, free Bambi or what?
He's probably seen Bambi 2, Bambi 3.
Bambi was unfairly discriminated against because it wasn't a sequel.
Here's your daughter, Allison. How do you super chat money? Want to donate? I'm actually not sure that that's set up yet. I think you actually have to have a certain number of subscribers or views before that function is available, because that's only a YouTube. We're not actually streaming through YouTube yet. The only way you can stream live on YouTube is if you're over so many subscribers. Right now we're using a website called StreamYard, which allows you to stream to YouTube. And they don't have a super chat function on StreamYard. So the only way that'll be available is when we get over a certain number of subscribers. And then
so spread the word, subscribe.
That's exactly right. That's a good segue until they're ending. As soon as we get Fur Chuck out of here, he types oops. I don't know why he types oops. Then he says, jokes about Bambi aside, are you sure the super chat is set up? I don't see an option for it. No, that's what I just explained. So your Allison's comments is a great segue into a close. The only way that you can actually help this channel is, for one, you go to YouTube on an actual web browser, sign up for a YouTube account.
It's free.
Search for, yeah, that's free. Search for Armchair Fandom. When you find our channel, you subscribe, and then you like the videos that you watch. Hit the notification bell, which will email you a notification each time we upload something new, and leave a comment in the comment section below each video. You can also find us on Facebook at the Facebook group Armchair Fandom. You can find us on Twitter at armchair_fandom. Where can they find you, Ashley?
You can find me at Ashley Houchins on Twitter, and you can also find me at you can leave a comment in the Armchair Fandom group on Facebook. You can, we would see it there. You could also find me on Facebook at Ashley Houchins on Facebook as well. And drop us comments, suggestions, anything you'd like. And like you say, spread the word, help the channel, because the more you do that, I mean, we can take this bad boy live on YouTube.
Yeah, we want this to be a interactive channel. So if you got an idea for a movie you want reviewed or topic you want us to cover on Saturday evenings, all you got to do is contact us one of the ways we just mentioned, and we'll cover some stuff from our viewers. And like we mentioned earlier in the video, I am working on some merchandise, bumper stickers, t-shirts, hats. If you want to help us advertise the brand out in public, then just we'll be getting around. We'll be bringing that stuff out in the future. Next thing I'm working on.
You didn't give your shill update for the week.
What's that?
You didn't give your shill update for the week.
Yeah, just go watch John Campion's YouTube channel. I didn't have a shill update this week, but anytime you want to see how shills act, just go find John Campy on YouTube. That's my shill update for the week. Him or the Schmodown Entertainment Network.
If you want to see a pork imitation of Vince McMahon, please see the aforementioned channel.
That's right. All right, man. We're going to get off here. Ashley, it was fun,
back to Korriban. I got these books don't write themselves.
All right. Nice talking to you.
See you.